As of tonight, we have roughly 58,000 Americans in uniform in Afghanistan. It's a privilege to have been over there and seen them in action. It's America's longest war, and yet it still, frustratingly, isn't quite real for millions of American families who have no direct connection to it or any of those who have volunteered to serve. Our chief foreign correspondent, Richard Engel, has spent the better part of this last decade covering our foreign wars. Tonight, you get to meet one of the young veterans he met along the way. It was on a battlefield on a bad day in Afghanistan when he met Sgt Loftus Loftus. And tonight, he completes his story because when he came home, Sgt Loftus opened his life to us.
Aim. Fire.
This was a familiar scene in the Arghandab Valley in 2010. A memorial service for a soldier killed in one of the most dangerous places in southern Afghanistan. So dangerous that as we made our way back from the memorial, the Taliban attacked at close range. The members of the 82nd Airborne were caught off guard and moved quickly to retaliate.
This base has come under heavy attack. Already one soldier has been severely injured.
In the middle of the battle was Sgt Loftus Loftus. The 22-year-old from Akron, Ohio, took up a gun and helped repel the Taliban assault. This was life for Sgt Loftus and the members of his brigade. In 1 year, 38 soldiers from the unit were killed in action and roughly 200 were injured.
Move your team around and try to get eyes on the intersection, all right?
Lewis had always dreamed of serving in the military, and he was often the team leader on foot patrols through farmland littered with bombs. But the deployment was taking its toll.
All right, keep going.
And when we asked about the fallen soldier whose memorial we attended, the stress and pent-up emotions poured out.
I'm kind of numb to it. Like, to be honest, I just don't really feel much. I pray for his family. I pray for his soul that, you know. See, I try not to think about it. Because when you think about it, then I get like this. And it's not, you know, I don't... yeah. So, yeah, you know, everyone deals with their own way. I try to hide it. I try not to think about it because I got to stay 100%. You know, I got to keep a good example in front of the other soldiers.
This was Sgt Loftus's second tour in Afghanistan, and he longed to be home. In quiet moments, he looked at pictures of a pretty girl named Sgt Lopez, who he wanted to marry. But would he and Sgt be able to pick up where they left off? After all he'd been through, Lewis knew returning home would not be easy.
Surprise! Hey, how's it going?
In November 2010, 5 months after we met him, he was honorably discharged and back in Akron.
Glasses up.
This is for Lulu Loftus.
Here, here.
His family was clearly relieved to have him home safe. His father openly emotional. And no one seemed happier than Sgt.
I can't even explain the feeling that was going through my body when I saw him walking. When he was about 5 feet from the line, I went ahead and just ran into his arms, and it literally just felt like I won the lottery. It was like the best feeling ever.
But while he appreciated the party, he seemed overwhelmed.
I was nervous. My legs were shaking.
Why were you so nervous? Why were you so uncomfortable there?
I don't know. I just, I wasn't ready to see all those people. And when I walked in and everyone yelled surprise, it just rattled my nerves a little bit.
In fact, as soon as Lewis got back to the U.S., there were warning signs that the emotional struggle we had witnessed in Afghanistan had folled him home.
Oh, that's when I got out of basic training.
As he unpacked into Sgt's apartment, he was still anxious, experiencing fits of crying and racked by nightmares.
Any time that he fell asleep or even woke up in the night, he'd be sweating. I mean, literally dripped in sweat. I would feel it from the sheets, you know, next to me.
Still, Lewis insisted his symptoms were manageable.
I don't think it's affecting me, my life, or, I mean, it's just a day-to-day thing, you know.
But over the winter, just a few months after he returned home, things changed. He began drinking more, depression set in, and he gained weight.
It's just hard to open yourself up. I've become distant, very distant from my own family, friends. I can't relate with people.
Do you miss Afghanistan?
Yeah, I would say I do. I'd go back.
Why would you want to go back? You were so happy when you left.
Yeah, I know. But just because, I don't know, just to help the guys, just try to do a little more good.
Like so many soldiers, he missed the camaraderie.
You don't have a team helping you when you come home. That's what makes the military so special, because everyone's together, and your friends really won't let you slip.
After struggling to cope with his anxiety and sleep disorder, Lewis finally sought treatment at his local VA. He was prescribed medication and began therapy for post-traumatic stress. But he was still avoiding facing a lot of his emotions, and rage began to surface.
I think what got me was how on edge he was all the time. You know, I would say, or we would just be talking and maybe in a slight disagreement, not even in an argument, not even raising our voices. And I would say something and he would just flip.
By the end of April 2011, roughly 5 months after returning home, his relationship with Deidre fell apart and he moved out. Then Deidre found out she was pregnant. The two tried to reconcile, but nearly 4 months into the pregnancy, they got into a fight in the car and it turned violent.
He was telling me that, you know, I've killed people in Afghanistan that are worth more than you. You are worth nothing to me.
She goes, I've looked it up. You have PTSD. You're not allowed to have unsupervised visits with your son.
As soon as I made that comment, I mean, his face was just red. His eyes were just huge, bulging out of his head, and I knew, oh God, you know, this is it.
And I grabbed her and pulled her out of the vehicle and then drove away.
My ear hole was ripped and there was blood on my neck, and my hair was just completely out of, you know, obviously out of order, and, you know, I had cuts on both my feet and cuts on both my knees.
Did you think you'd done something wrong?
Yes, I did. I hope I didn't scare her so bad she'll never trust me again.
But the damage was done. In December 2011, a year after his homecoming, he was in court, charged with a domestic violence felony. To make matters worse, he was also charged with resisting arrest because several days after the incident with Deidre, he got drunk, beat up his father, and fought with a police officer.
I am sorry for what I did.
Now more than 8 months pregnant, Deidre came to the court to testify. Though still angry, she wanted to clarify for the judge that Lewis had never done anything like this before.
I know that he's seen a lot overseas, and, you know, I can never put myself in his position, but I just want him to know that what he did to me was not okay. I want him to get help is the biggest thing.
The judge sentenced Lewis to 3 years probation and a stint in a halfway house, with the instruction he was not to be in contact with Deidre.
Lewis, why is all this happening?
Well, I just don't think I've, you know, dealt with it. I hear that the more you keep it in, eventually it's going to come out. It's going to find a way out. And I just think, you know, it's finally starting to come out. And
What's it? The friends that got killed over there?
All of them. All the friends that got killed over there.
That's what's coming out?
I think so. I think it's something to do building up from that, and, you know.
You knew coming back home would be tough.
Yeah.
Has it been harder than even you expected?
Definitely. I never expected it to get that hard. I used to be one of those guys that made fun of people with post-traumatic stress, in my mind, not to their face. But I think, oh, what a sissy, you know, what a sissy. But now I realize that it's a real thing.
Lewis got a chance to make things right. Just a month after his sentencing, he and Deidre welcomed Mason Lopez Loftus into the world. Deidre had the restraining order lifted so Lewis could attend the birth.
Hey, buddy.
Mason.
I don't doubt she'll be a good mom, and I'm going to try my hardest to be a good dad, so.
As hard as it's been, Lewis has found things to anchor him. With unemployment for veterans who served in Iraq and Afghanistan well above the national average, he started his own company, LJ's Small Mason Jobs, with his uncle.
Uh-oh. Mwah. Ha-ha.
And his son has been a constant comfort. The relationship with Deidre has been rocky, to say the least, but they are back together and trying to make it work.
It's just how much he's struggled to get to where he is now, and the so many things that he's overcome. It's just like
with a little bit more effort from even my part and his, this is going to be awesome.
In June, more than a year and a half after returning home from Afghanistan, Lewis finished his 90-day stint at the halfway house. He's since joined a PTSD support group at the VA, and he says he's focused on his family.
If I'm stressed out from something at work or if something got me upset, you know, it's like, where's Mason at? I got to go pick him up. I kind of gotten stability again.
Hey, buddy.
But managing his PTSD is a day-to-day struggle, and his tears are still close to the surface.
You know, in the back of my mind, it's like, well, what's wrong with you? Nothing's wrong. I mean, you're fine. You're still there. You got both legs, you know, and just whatever. I hope you're going to air that, but it sucks.
It's clear the nation's longest war will always be with him.
You once said that serving in Afghanistan was your greatest accomplishment, the proudest moment of your life.
Mm-hmm.
Now you've had trouble coming back from Afghanistan. Has that changed the way you think about the war and your time there?
Absolutely not. We sacrifice on the battlefield, but we also sacrifice when we get home, handling the stress and the emotions that come along with that. I do feel that eventually it will get better. You know, maybe not a year, maybe not 2, 3, 4, 5 years, but I do think the way I handle it will be better.
It's a beautiful little boy. Also an incredible piece of reporting from our own Richard Engel. Our thanks to him and, of course, to Sgt Loftus and his family for taking part and for their sacrifice.